My name is Maya Thompson. I used to believe I had the perfect life, not the glamorous kind, but the comfortable, quiet sort that makes you feel safe. My husband, Ethan, was stable and calm, the kind of man who never forgot to text when he got to work. And my best friend, Lily Carter, was practically my sister. We met in college, shared dorm rooms, heartbreaks, coffee addictions, and everything in between. If someone had told me 5 years ago that these two people, the ones I trusted most, would shatter me, I'd have laughed. I'd have said, no way. Not Ethan, not Lily. But the thing about betrayal is, it always comes from the ones you'd never suspect. It started small, like most tragedies do. Lily had been spending more time at our place, not unusual at first. She'd always been around, but I started noticing small shifts. The way she lingered in the kitchen when Ethan was home. How they exchanged glances that felt a bit too familiar. I'd tell myself I was overthinking. After all, Lily was going through a breakup, and Ethan, being the good guy he was, just wanted to make her feel welcome. That's what I told myself, until the night everything began to unravel. One evening, Ethan got home late, said he'd been helping a friend with car trouble. He smelled faintly of her perfume, the floral one Lily always wore. I tried to push it out of my head. You don't accuse your husband of cheating just because he smells like your best friend. That's the kind of thing paranoid people do, right? But then there were the texts. The first time I saw one, I wasn't even snooping. Ethan had left his phone on the counter, screen up. It was a simple message, greater than Lily. Last night was amazing. Remember staring at those words like they were written in a language I didn't understand. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just felt this cold, sinking calm. When Ethan walked in, I smiled. I said nothing. That's the thing about me. I don't explode. I observe, and I plan. Over the next few days, I started collecting things, screenshots, receipts, pieces of truth that I tucked away like glass shards. The late night calls, the work trips, the subtle changes in Ethan's behavior. And every time Lily smiled at me, pretending everything was normal, I smiled back, pretending I didn't know. When you're betrayed by two people you love, you start to see them differently. Every laugh feels fake. Every hug feels staged. Every word sounds rehearsed. I told no one. Not my family, not my coworkers. I needed them to keep trusting me, to think I was still the same Maya, the loyal wife, the forgiving friend. Weeks turned into months, and by the time I had enough proof, something in me had already died. But the part that remained, that cold, calculating part, had one goal: make them both regret it. Revenge, for me, wasn't going to be about screaming matches or thrown dishes. It was going to be slow, subtle, surgical. It started with Lily. She worked as a marketing manager at a small firm, one where reputation mattered more than results. And I knew things about her. Secrets she'd whispered during wine nights. Mistakes she'd made that would ruin her image if they ever got out. So I started with a simple email from an anonymous account to her boss. Nothing explicit, just enough to plant a seed, greater than you might want to review Lily Carter's side projects. Some clients talk more than they should. By the end of that week, she was under review for breaching a client NDA. Nothing conclusive, but enough to make her anxious. Enough to make her nights sleepless. Then came Ethan. I knew every password he had, not because I snooped, but because we built our life together. Shared bank accounts. Shared schedules. Shared everything. So I started pulling money. Not all at once, small withdrawals, spread out. Just enough to create confusion. Enough to make him question his own memory. Did I buy that? Did I spend that? Every night he'd frown at the statements, rubbing his temples. And every night I'd say, "You should rest, babe. You've been working too hard." And Lily? She'd call him, whispering about how stressed she was. She didn't know her own downfall had already started. But I wasn't done. My real revenge wasn't about money or rumors. It was about exposure. I wanted them to face what they'd done, not privately, but where everyone could see it. Ethan's birthday was coming up, a perfect opportunity. I told him I'd throw a small get-together at our house. Just close friends. Lily, of course, was invited. She hesitated at first, guilt flickering behind her smile, but she came. The night was perfect. Candles, wine, laughter. Everyone was relaxed. I played the perfect hostess, even letting Lily help set the table. Halfway through dinner, I raised my glass. To my husband, I said, smiling. To the man who taught me that sometimes love means forgiveness. Ethan smiled, awkwardly confused. Lily looked down, fidgeting. Then I pressed a button on the remote I'd hidden under the table. The TV behind us flicked on, and there it was, a slideshow of text messages, hotel receipts, and pictures. Not explicit, but clear enough. The room went silent. Someone dropped a fork. Lily's face turned white. Ethan's jaw clenched, his eyes darting between me and the screen. I took a slow sip of wine. "I thought about keeping this private," I said softly, but then I realized secrets only hurt when they're hidden. Ethan tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. Lily stood, trembling, whispering, "Maya, please." I stood too, meeting her eyes. "You were my best friend," I said. "You knew everything about me, my fears, my insecurities. And you used them. You don't get to ask for mercy now." I walked out before anyone could say a word. For days, I didn't answer calls. I didn't check social media. But when I finally did, the fallout was spectacular. Lily had been let go from her firm. Apparently, her ethics were being reviewed. Ethan moved in with his parents. Their perfect little fantasy had burned down before it ever began. People kept asking if I felt satisfied, if I felt free. The truth? I didn't, not immediately. Revenge doesn't heal. It exposes. It forces people to see the pain they caused, but it doesn't erase it. It took months before the silence in my house stopped echoing with their laughter. Before I could sleep without replaying the moment I found that first text. But slowly I began rebuilding. I took a new job, got my own apartment, started running again, things that belonged to me and no one else. One day, months later, I ran into Lily at a coffee shop. She looked small, not physically, but like someone had drained the life out of her. She froze when she saw me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I looked at her for a long time, then smiled, a calm, genuine smile. "I know," I said, "and that's enough." Then I turned and walked away, because that's the thing about revenge. It's not about making them hurt as much as you did. It's about reclaiming your power, the part they tried to steal. And for the first time since that night, I felt it again, that quiet, steady heartbeat that said I was finally free. I wish I could tell you that I stormed out that night, that I left Michael and Rachel to destroy each other, but I didn't. I stayed. I stayed because I needed to understand. Because when betrayal cuts that deep, logic isn't what drives you anymore. It's obsession. It's the quiet ache of needing to see the truth with your own eyes before you decide how to kill the lie. I watched them for weeks. Rachel didn't even try to hide it well. She started showing up at Michael's office more often, claiming she was dropping off lunch. Michael, the man who used to hate being disturbed at work, suddenly didn't mind. One night, I drove past her apartment and saw his car parked outside. That's when I started taking photos, screenshots, dates, times. I turned into someone else, someone quiet, precise, dangerous. During the day, I still wore my wedding ring. I smiled when people asked about Michael. I even hugged Rachel at brunch when she pretended everything was fine. But inside, I was writing a script for her downfall. It wasn't rage anymore. It was theater. The plan started with a simple step: trust. Rachel trusted me. Even after she betrayed me, she thought she could control me through guilt. She started calling me more often, checking on me, pretending to be sorry for things she couldn't even name. So I used that. I told her I was finally okay, that I forgave both of them. She cried on the phone. I let her. Then I asked for a favor. Rachel, I'm starting a new event planning company, I said. I'd love your help. You've always had such an eye for aesthetics. Her ego took the bait immediately. Rachel had always loved the spotlight. I knew if I gave her a little taste of it, she'd bite until it bled. 3 months later, Aurora Events was born, at least on paper. It was fake, of course. I rented a small office downtown, staged it with Pinterest-perfect decor, and hired a photographer friend to act as my assistant. We designed brochures, built a website, even ran Instagram ads. And then I pitched Rachel the idea of making her the face of the brand. You're gorgeous, I told her. You'd be perfect for our brand lunch campaign. Her cheeks flushed with pride. Really? You think I could be a model? More than that, I said. You'll be our signature client. She didn't even ask for payment. Vanity was its own currency. Michael, meanwhile, started to grow distant from her. Of course he did. Cheaters always get bored. By the time she thought she had won him, his attention was already fading. Rachel would call me crying sometimes. He's been cold lately. I think he's stressed. I'd comfort her. I'd listen. I'd even give her advice. But secretly, every tear she shed was another jewel on my crown. The Aurora Events launch was my masterpiece. It was scheduled on the exact date of our wedding anniversary. Poetic, isn't it? I invited everyone, mutual friends, family, colleagues, even Michael. I told him Rachel was helping me organize it and that it meant a lot if he showed up. He didn't suspect a thing. The venue? A lakeside hall, the same one where Rachel and I celebrated her 25th birthday, back when we were inseparable. I spent weeks rehearsing every moment. The decorations, the lighting, the seating chart, all calculated. Even the slideshow presentation, especially the slideshow presentation. When the night came, the air buzzed with expensive perfume and fake laughter. Rachel looked stunning. She wore a gold dress that shimmered like liquid betrayal. She thought the night was about her rise, her glow up, her new beginning. I gave her that spotlight, literally. Ladies and gentlemen, I said into the microphone, smiling at the crowd. Before we begin, I want to show you the story behind Aurora Events, the story of love, loyalty, and friendship. The lights dimmed. The projector lit up. The first few slides were innocent, pictures of me and Rachel. Through the years, birthdays, coffee dates, vacations, laughter, everyone smiled. Then the photo shifted. Rachel's smile faded as the next image appeared, her in a hotel room. With Michael, his arms around her, their faces half lit, unmistakable. Whispers filled the room. I kept talking, my voice smooth. This is where the inspiration began. When I learned that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who teach you the most about deceit and reinvention. Rachel gasped. Jenna, what the hell are you doing? The next slide appeared, screenshots of their messages. Can't wait to see you tonight. Don't tell Jenna. Promise. Michael stood up, pale. Turn it off. I raised my hand. Sit down, Michael. You'll want to see the finale. The last slide was a video clip, Rachel's voice, recorded one night when she called me, drunk and ranting, greater than she doesn't even make him happy anymore. She's boring. I'm saving him. The crowd went silent. When the lights came back on, Rachel was gone. Michael was gone too, but my smile stayed. That night, I walked outside into the cool wind, feeling lighter than I had in years. Not because I destroyed them, but because I finally ended the story they wrote for me. They thought betrayal made them powerful. They didn't know betrayal had made me limitless. I didn't sleep that night, not because of guilt that had burned out long ago, but because the silence felt too quiet after years of chaos. For the first time in months, there were no lies to decode, no text to monitor, no fake smiles to hold. Just me, a glass of wine, and the faint echo of applause from the guests who had stayed long enough to witness Rachel's public undoing by morning. My phone was a graveyard of notifications. Voicemails from Rachel, half screaming, half sobbing. Missed calls from Michael, each one more desperate than the last. Texts from friends that began with, "Is this true?" and ended with, "I can't believe it." And right there, in the middle of it all, a message from my mother. "You could have just divorced him quietly, Jenna." You didn't understand. It wasn't just about divorce. It was about balance. By the end of that week, the city had already moved on, but Rachel hadn't. Her employer found out about the scandal. HR called it unprofessional conduct. She lost her job, her fiancé, because yes, after stealing mine. She had the nerve to try and marry him, canceled their engagement. Michael, stripped of his social status and friends, tried to contact me through mutual acquaintances. He wanted closure. I gave him silence, but revenge isn't about destruction alone. It's about what comes after. So I built something new. 3 months later, I launched the Real Aurora events, this time for real clients. It turns out revenge had taught me business. I understood attention, timing, performance, everything marketing required. My first client was a small wedding. Ironically enough, when the bride asked about my inspiration for the brand, I just smiled and said, "Greater than I learned to make beauty out of betrayal." Business grew fast. People liked my confidence, that mysterious, composed energy that comes only when you've already been to hell and come back owning the place. But then something unexpected happened. Rachel showed up again. She came to my office one rainy afternoon. No makeup, hair a mess, clothes too loose, the image of someone who had stopped pretending. "Jenna," she whispered, standing in the doorway like a ghost. "Please, I need to talk." My assistant looked at me, unsure. I nodded when the door closed. Rachel broke down. "I lost everything," she said. "My job, my apartment, my friends. Michael left me. I know I deserve it, but I can't live like this anymore." I leaned back in my chair, calm, unreadable. For a second, I almost pitied her. Almost. "Do you remember?" I said softly, "the night you called me and said you were saving Michael from me?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Yes, I was wrong." "You were," I said, "but I'm not here to save you either." She begged. "Please, Jenna, I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just some peace. Tell me what I can do to fix it." I stood up and walked toward her. Then I handed her an envelope. Inside was a contract, a job offer. "You're good at organizing," I said. "You want peace? Earn it." Rachel blinked, confused. "You want me to work for you?" "Yes, as an assistant, temporary, minimum pay." Her mouth fell open. "After everything I did to you, that's exactly why," I interrupted. "You destroyed my life for attention. Now you can rebuild it by helping me succeed." I expected her to throw the paper in my face, but she didn't. She signed it. For the next year, Rachel worked for me. I didn't humiliate her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even remind her of the past. I just made sure she watched me thrive. When clients praised me, she smiled through it. When magazines featured Aurora Events as the city's rising creative agency, she helped carry the props. When a new man started showing interest in me, Daniel, a liar with kind eyes, she watched me laugh again. That was the real punishment. Not her job, not her lost pride, but the constant reminder that the woman she tried to erase had become untouchable. One evening after a big event, Rachel stayed late to clean up. I found her sitting on the floor, staring at the fairy lights we had hung across the ceiling. "I used to think love was everything," she said quietly. "Now I think it's just ... survival." I looked at her for a long time before replying, "Love isn't survival, Rachel. It's choice. And you chose wrong." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I know." 6 months later, I got a message from Michael. He had moved to another city, lost his job. Word about the scandal had followed him. He said he was sorry for everything and hoped we could find peace. I didn't reply, but I did post a quote that same day on Aurora's social page: "Greater than forgiveness isn't for the weak. It's for the ones who've already won." It went viral. Years later, Aurora became one of the top event firms in the state. Daniel and I got engaged. Nothing flashy, just us, the lake, and the kind of silence that feels safe. Rachel still worked with us, part-time now. She'd rebuilt herself, slowly, honestly. We didn't become friends again, but we became something better, truthfully civil. At our engagement dinner, she raised a glass and said softly, "To second chances and to the women who teach us how to take them." I smiled, because in that moment I realized my revenge was complete. Not because I'd destroyed her, but because I'd outgrown her. Sometimes people ask me how I could forgive Rachel after everything. I tell them forgiveness wasn't the end of my revenge, it was the crown of it. She'd wake up every day remembering what she did. I'll wake up every day remembering who I became because of it. That's not weakness. That's evolution. And if she ever forgets, well, the internet never does.